Chosen one, stop everything for one sacred moment. Do not rush past this. Do not explain it away. Heaven did not let this message find you by accident, because God said something about what you just did that even you have not fully understood. You thought it was only silence. You thought it was only restraint. You thought you were just walking away. But heaven watched the moment when your old self could have answered, and instead your spirit chose a higher law. That was not weakness. That was power. You had a reason to react. You had a reason to defend yourself. You had a reason to expose them, correct them, shame them, or return the same pain they placed on you. But you did not. You held the fire. You carried the weight. You let your hands stay clean while your heart was still hurting. And that is why heaven stopped over your name with a silence deeper than applause. You need to hear this carefully. God said, in all the history of what has moved through your bloodline, your battles, your patterns, and your hidden assignments, nobody has ever done what you just did the way you did it. Not because no one has ever stayed quiet before, not because no one has ever walked away before, but because you did it with a wound still open, and you refused to let the wound become your master. That is the part heaven recorded. You did not wait until the pain disappeared. You did not wait until everyone understood you. You did not wait until someone apologized. You chose obedience while your flesh still had evidence to argue. There is a kind of victory that does not look like victory at first. It looks like sitting alone after the conversation ends. It looks like your body trembling because you did not say what you could have said. It looks like tears that never became revenge. You may have wondered why you felt so tired afterward. You may have felt strangely empty. You may have felt heavy, quiet, or almost numb, as if something inside you had finished a battle that nobody else could see. That was not random exhaustion. Your spirit had just refused an old throne. Your body was learning that survival no longer gets to make every decision, and your nervous system was adjusting to a version of you that no longer obeys the wound first. Chosen one, this is why the enemy tried to make you misunderstand the moment. He wanted you to call it losing. He wanted you to call it being too soft. He wanted you to replay what you should have said until your peace became a prison. But heaven called it training fulfilled. Heaven called it a line crossed. Heaven called it proof. You did not become what hurt you, and that single choice carried more spiritual weight than many loud declarations spoken in public. Maybe they lied about you. Maybe they used your kindness. Maybe they took your silence as permission. Maybe they mistook your patience for fear. And still, something in you refused to become bitter enough to destroy what God has been building. That is why this message had to reach you now. You are in danger of underestimating the power you just carried. If you call it nothing, you may return to the old cycle. If you call it weakness, you may hand your crown back to the wound. Listen closely. The greatest test was not whether you could survive what they did. You already survived. The greater test was whether you could carry power after survival without using that power to punish everyone who reminded you of pain. That is rare. That is holy. That is not common. Many people ask God for authority, but when pressure touches the old injury, they use their voice like a weapon and call it truth. You were trained for something cleaner. You were trained in rooms where no one celebrated you. You were trained through delays that made no sense. You were trained through betrayal that made your heart suspicious of love, and rejection that made your spirit wonder if being chosen meant being alone. You were trained every time you wanted to respond and did not. You were trained every time you wanted to quit and stayed faithful. You were trained every time your name was handled carelessly, and you still refused to let your mouth become a furnace of destruction. Do not minimize that. Do not make it small. Do not say anyone would have done the same. They would not. Some people would have exposed everything. Some people would have cursed the room. Some people would have become the exact thing that wounded them. But you did not. You carried fire without burning the wrong altar. You carried truth without turning it into cruelty. You carried pain without making it your identity, and that is the kind of power heaven can trust. There is an old pattern that expected you to fail. It expected you to react like those before you. It expected you to answer pain with pain, silence with accusation, betrayal with poison, and fear with control. But something broke when you stayed clean. Something broke when you refused to return the curse. Something broke when you let God defend what your ego wanted to handle by force. And that break in the pattern shook more than you know. You may not have felt powerful in that moment. You may have felt small. You may have felt unseen. You may have wondered if heaven even cared how much it cost you to stay quiet when your whole body wanted justice. God saw it. God heard what you did not say. God measured the restraint no one applauded. God recorded the pain you surrendered before it could become a sword in your hand. And now heaven is speaking over the place where you almost called yourself weak. You were not weak. You were being entrusted. You were not ignored. You were being examined. You were not losing. You were passing a test that only hidden royalty understands. Chosen one, the enemy is nervous because you are beginning to realize something. The power inside you is not loud first. It is clean first. It does not need to dominate every room. It changes the atmosphere because it is no longer ruled by reaction. That is why your peace feels different now. It is not ordinary peace. It is the silence after a chain breaks. It is the calm that follows a spiritual verdict. It is the stillness of someone who has crossed a threshold and cannot go back to being managed by old pain. You might still feel emotional. That is allowed. You might still feel hurt. That is human. But something deeper has shifted beneath the hurt, because the part of you that used to reach for reaction has started reaching for God first. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of a new authority. But before that authority can be carried openly, you must understand what heaven just proved through you, because power that is not understood can be wasted in the next test. So stay with me. Do not let distraction steal this moment. Do not let pride twist it either. In the next part, I will show you why heaven calls this power, not weakness, and why God trained you for it long before this moment arrived. Chosen one, heaven calls this power because weakness would have surrendered to the wound. Weakness would have copied the pattern. Weakness would have used pain as permission to become cruel. But you stood in the fire and refused to let the fire choose your character. You thought silence meant losing the room. Heaven saw silence as mastery. You thought walking away meant they won. Heaven saw a soul that no longer needed to prove its value to people who were committed to misunderstanding it. That is not defeat. That is authority under control. There is a reason this cost you so much. You were not only resisting a person, you were resisting a bloodline habit, an old survival language, and a reaction that pain taught you long before you knew how to name it. That is why your whole body felt the battle. Some of you were trained by chaos to answer fast. You learned to defend yourself before anyone could accuse you. You learned to explain, overtalk, prove, justify, and protect your name. But God has been teaching you a higher way, because your next level cannot be carried by an old reflex. This is the reframe. You did not just hold your tongue, you held your throne. You did not just leave the room, you left the pattern. You did not just refuse revenge. You refused to let the enemy write your next identity through the behavior of another person. That is why God trained you in hidden places. He used delays to slow the part of you that wanted control. He used rejection to expose the part of you that still begged for human approval. He used silence to teach you that being unseen by people does not mean being unseen by heaven. And now I need to say something gently. Your power does not come from any tool, any sound, or any outside source. Your power comes from God. But when a chosen one has lived under pressure for years, the mind can become noisy, scattered, and slow to recognize clean instruction. Later, I will explain a simple support tool called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute audio practice built around brain entrainment and gamma support. not to replace prayer, not to replace obedience, but to support clarity when stress, fear, and old pain have made your inner world feel crowded. For now, do not leave the revelation. The tool only makes sense after you understand what God just trained in you, because power without clarity can become reaction with a crown, and heaven is not raising you to repeat what wounded you with better language. The rare thing you just did was not dramatic to the natural eye. It may not be posted, praised, or understood, but in the unseen realm, restraint speaks loudly. It says the wound is no longer king. It says the old trigger no longer owns your hands, your mouth, or your future. You may still feel the sting of what happened. That does not cancel your victory. You may still wish someone had apologized. That does not make your obedience fake. The presence of pain does not mean you failed the test, because maturity is not the absence of pain. It is holy order in the presence of it. God has been building order in you, first in your thoughts, then in your words, then in your timing, then in your silence. He has been teaching you to carry emotion without letting emotion become a ruler, because the next assignment requires a vessel that does not spill every time it is touched. This is why the enemy keeps sending familiar tests. He wants to know if the old door still works. He wants to know if accusation can still pull you out of peace. He wants to know if disrespect can still make you abandon your seat and start fighting like the old version of you. Do not expect everyone to understand this version of you. Some people only knew how to control you through your reaction. When you no longer react, they call you cold. When you no longer explain, they call you proud. When you no longer chase, they call you changed. Yes, you changed, but not into something worse. You changed into someone harder to manipulate. You changed into someone who can feel pain and still choose God. You changed into someone who can carry fire and still refuse to burn the wrong field. This is what training looks like. It does not always feel glorious. Sometimes it feels like being misunderstood while heaven says, stay still. Sometimes it feels like losing an argument so you can win your soul. Sometimes it feels like walking away while your flesh begs for one final word. But that final word would have cost you more than they were worth. That reaction would have reopened a door God had already closed. That comeback would have made the wound feel powerful again, and God loves you too much to let old pain keep feeding on your anointing. Chosen one, God did not train you to be passive. He trained you to be precise. There is a difference. Passive people avoid truth because they fear conflict. Precise people speak when God releases them, and stay silent when the ego is only hungry for control. You are learning precision. You are learning timing. You are learning that every truth does not need your voice at the same moment. You are learning that heaven can defend a name better than panic can, and that the strongest people do not waste strength proving they are strong. This is why heaven calls your restraint power. Anyone can explode when they are provoked. Anyone can wound back when they are wounded. Anyone can repeat a curse and blame it on pain, but it takes a trained spirit to feel the blade and still refuse to become a blade. That is what happened in you. The blade touched you, but you did not become it. The accusation came, but you did not marry it. The betrayal spoke, but you did not let it rename you. And somewhere in the unseen realm, an old legal agreement broke. You broke agreement with becoming bitter. You broke agreement with emotional inheritance. You broke agreement with the belief that your pain gives you permission to destroy. You broke agreement with the version of you that needed the last word to feel safe. That is why this power must be protected. Not because you are fragile, but because you are valuable. Not because the enemy is stronger, but because your clarity is precious. A confused, powerful person can be manipulated, but a clear, powerful person becomes dangerous to every old system built on their reaction. You are beginning to understand why the last season was so intense. It was not punishment, it was purification. God allowed pressure to reveal what still controlled you, not to condemn you, but to separate your true authority from the wound that tried to wear it. This is the kind of person heaven can trust with influence. Not someone who never feels, not someone who is never hurt, but someone who can feel deeply and still stay submitted. Someone who can hold truth without making truth cruel. Someone who can carry authority without becoming intoxicated by it. Stay close now. The next part will prove this pattern through people God trusted before you. David had a moment like this. Joseph had a moment like this. Jesus showed the highest form of it. And once you see the pattern, you will understand why this test only comes to people heaven is preparing for more. Chosen one, the pattern is older than your pain. Heaven has always tested power through restraint before it trusted power with visibility. God does not measure authority by how loudly someone reacts. He measures it by what they can carry without becoming corrupted by the weight. Look at David. He had the chance to strike Saul. He had the reason, the pain, the history, and the opportunity. Saul had hunted him, misunderstood him, and threatened the promise on his life. But David would not use an open door as permission to violate the heart of God. That moment was not weakness. It was kingship before the crown. David proved that he could hold a sword without letting bitterness become his commander, and that is why heaven could trust him with a throne later. Some of you have been standing in that same cave. You had the evidence, you had the message, you had the memory. You had the one sentence that could have exposed everything, but something deeper than anger held your hand back. That was training. That was authority maturing in secret. You thought you were only being denied justice, but heaven was watching to see if justice in your hands would remain clean. Many can ask for a throne. Few can refuse revenge before they sit on it. Look at Joseph. He had every natural right to punish his brothers. They betrayed him, sold him, erased him from the family story, and left him to live with consequences they did not have to carry. Years later, power finally sat in his hand, but Joseph did not become the wound. He did not use position to repeat pain. He saw a higher pattern, and he understood that what people meant for harm, God had woven into preservation. That is not ordinary forgiveness. That is power under divine government. This is what you just touched. You did not deny the pain. You did not pretend the betrayal was small. You simply refused to let betrayal become your teacher. You refused to let the people who mishandled you become the blueprint for your future. That refusal carries spiritual weight. It breaks the old agreement. It tells every hidden pattern that your soul is no longer available for inherited reaction. It tells the enemy that the same wound can no longer produce the same version of you. Look at Moses. He had fire before he had discipline. He saw injustice and reacted with force. But before God used him to confront Pharaoh, he took him through wilderness, silence, waiting, and stripping. God did not remove the fire. He purified its direction. That is why your wilderness has been long. God was not trying to make you powerless. He was teaching your fire where to stand. He was teaching your voice when to speak. He was teaching your hands not to strike just because they were strong enough. The wilderness is where raw power becomes holy power. The wilderness is where reaction becomes obedience. The wilderness is where a person stops needing applause, stops needing control, and begins to understand that assignment is heavier than emotion. And then look at Jesus. When false voices accused him, he did not let accusation control his timing. He knew who he was. He knew what he carried. He knew that silence, in the right moment, can carry more authority than 1,000 arguments. That is the highest pattern. Not weakness, not fear, not avoidance. Holy restraint. A power so submitted that it refuses to perform for those who only want a reaction. A power so clean that it does not need to prove itself to be real. Chosen one. This is why heaven is speaking so strongly over you. You are not the first person to be hurt. You are not the first person to be misunderstood. But in the history of your cycle, something different happened when you refused to let pain choose your response. The old pattern expected rage. You gave surrender. The old pattern expected revenge. You gave obedience. The old pattern expected panic. You gave stillness. The old pattern expected you to become another carrier of the same wound, but you became a break in the chain. This is why your life has felt so watched lately, not watched by people, watched by heaven. You have been in a season where small decisions carried large spiritual meaning because God was proving what could be trusted into your hands next. If you cannot be provoked into misuse, you can be trusted with more. If you cannot be easily pulled out of peace, you can be trusted with influence. If you can hold fire without setting the wrong thing on fire, heaven can give you greater flame. But there is a warning inside this blessing. Power that is not protected can be hijacked. A person can pass one test and fail the next if they do not guard the clarity that helped them pass the first one. That is why the enemy now wants confusion. He wants you tired. He wants you foggy. He wants you replaying the scene until restraint becomes regret. He wants you to ask, why did I not say more? Why did I not defend myself harder? Why did I let them leave thinking they won? Do not take that bait. That is not wisdom speaking. That is the old cycle trying to resurrect itself through analysis. Sometimes the enemy cannot make you react in the moment, so he tries to make you react later in your imagination. This is why clarity matters. A cloudy mind can turn obedience into doubt. A tired spirit can call peace weakness. A wounded heart can look back at restraint and feel foolish, even when heaven is calling that same restraint a sign of mature authority. Even the language of the mind gives a small window into this truth. When stress is high, reaction becomes louder. When the brain is trapped in survival, old patterns feel urgent. But when clarity returns, discernment becomes easier to hear beneath the noise. This is where Gamma becomes a useful bridge. Higher focus, sharper perception, and cleaner inner awareness can support the kind of spiritual listening that keeps a chosen one steady under pressure. The science language is not the source. It is only a way to describe part of the vessel. God speaks to the spirit, but the mind must still be calm enough to notice. God can give instruction, but a scattered inner world may keep mislabeling it. That is why your next level is not only about power, it is about clean perception. You have already seen what happens when perception is unclean. Pain makes every person look like a threat. Betrayal makes every silence look suspicious. Rejection makes every delay feel personal. But clarity helps you separate a real warning from an old wound echoing again. That is the separation God is doing in you. He is teaching you what is instruction and what is injury. He is teaching you what is discernment and what is defense. He is teaching you what is holy silence and what is fear wearing quiet clothes. This is not small work. This is the work of rulers, prophets, warriors, and hidden vessels who must learn to carry authority without letting the old self climb back onto the throne. Heaven is not only healing you, heaven is making you trustworthy. Now we have reached the truth the enemy hoped you would never understand. What you just did broke an ancient pattern. It ended a reaction that expected to keep living through you. And once you see what you broke, you will never bow to the old cycle again. Chosen one, now the ancient pattern is exposed. What you just did was not small. You did not simply stay quiet. You did not simply walk away. You broke the inheritance of reaction that expected to keep breathing through your life. You refused to become the wound. You refused to let pain choose your voice. You refused to let betrayal become your identity. And that is why heaven is speaking with such weight over this moment. Because a cycle that survived before you met its ending through you. This is what God meant. In the history of your family pain, your secret battles, your old triggers, and your hidden assignment. Nobody carried this fire the way you just carried it. Nobody held that blade in their hand and still refused to become a blade. You had power in that moment. Do not deny it. You could have exposed. You could have wounded back. You could have said the sentence that would have ended the room. But something holier than ego placed a guard over your mouth. This is the revelation. You passed the test of unused power. You were trusted with the ability to destroy a thing, and you chose not to destroy from your wound. That is why this moment is so rare, because many people want authority until restraint becomes the entrance fee. Now hear the correction with love. God did not train you for revenge. He trained you for power under authority. He trained you to carry fire without burning the wrong altar. And what you just did proved that heaven can trust you with more. But this kind of power must be protected. You cannot carry it through fog. You cannot carry it through constant mental noise. You cannot carry it while old pain keeps grabbing the steering wheel, because power without clarity can become reaction wearing a crown. That is why your next season requires a clear vessel. Not a perfect vessel, a clear one. You need discernment that can separate the voice of God from the echo of injury, because the next test will not always look like a test. Earlier, I mentioned the genius song for a reason. Not as the source of your power, God is the source. Not as a replacement for prayer. Prayer remains sacred. Not as a shortcut around obedience, because obedience is still the door. The genius song is a 7-minute digital audio track created to support Gamma through brain entrainment. In simple language, it is designed to help support focus, intuition, clarity, and the inner sharpness many chosen ones remember having before life became heavy. Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying the brain and the states connected to focus, insight, and flow. Research connected with Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Princeton, Harvard, and other leading institutions has shown why higher brain activity matters for perception. Many chosen ones were sensitive as children. You noticed what others missed. You felt truth before people explained it. You learned quickly, sensed deeply, and carried an inner brightness that did not feel ordinary. Then life happened. Pressure came. Betrayal came. Survival came. The world got louder, and the clarity that once felt natural began to feel covered. You did not lose what God placed in you. It became buried beneath noise. This is why the genius song fits this message. It does not give you an identity. It supports the clarity needed to steward the identity heaven already gave you. It is for the person who knows there is power inside, but also knows fog has been delaying obedience. A woman in her early 40s understood that feeling. She spent years helping other people grow while feeling frozen inside. After 3 weeks, ideas returned naturally, and one decision she had delayed for nearly a year became clear in a single morning. That is the kind of support I mean. Not noise, not hype, not a promise to turn you into someone else. A simple daily audio practice for people who are ready to protect clarity, because their assignment requires more than emotional reaction. Some people spend around $15 a month on meditation apps. Some spend $100 to $200 on online courses. Some look at retreats that cost $400 to $800 or sessions around $150. Those things may help some people, but they are not built specifically around Gamma support. Professional brain training can also cost around $300 per session, and many people need repeated visits before they feel any difference. The genius song was made much simpler. 7 minutes, headphones, digital access, no shipping, no complicated ritual. The original price is $49, but for viewers of this message, the special access is $39 one time, and it includes more than the audio. You receive Genius Child, valued at $19. You receive Classic Book, valued at $20. You receive Guided Visualization, valued at $29. You receive the 5-Habit Infographic, valued at $12. Together, those bonuses carry $80 in added value. That means the support audio, the bonus tools, and the full access are placed in front of you for $39. Not as pressure, but as an open door for those who recognize the timing. More than 18,366 people have used it. And the stronger signal is not just how many started. Less than 4% asked for a refund, which means the great majority stayed with it after they had time to experience the support. Still, there is protection around your decision. You have 90 days. If it does not feel aligned, you can request a full refund. No conditions, no physical return, and you still keep all 4 digital bonuses, even if your money is returned. That matters because this should not feel heavy. You have carried enough pressure. This is not about chasing power. This is about protecting clarity. So the power God trained in you does not get hijacked by fog, pride, fear, or old reaction. There is one important warning. Many copycat pages and fake audio versions use familiar names. Some are only ordinary sounds without the real brain entrainment structure. They do not include the proper bonuses, the protection, or the verified access. Do not search for it on Amazon. Do not search for it on YouTube. Do not search for it on Spotify. The only verified access point is the link in the description and the pinned comment of this video. Now pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Place your hand over your chest if you can. Let your body know this is not a fear decision, and this is not an ego decision. Ask yourself quietly, am I ready to carry power with clarity, not reaction? Am I ready to protect the mind God speaks through? Am I ready to stop letting old pain make leadership decisions in my future? If your spirit says yes, the verified link is in the description and the pinned comment. Step through only if peace is pulling you. This is not about becoming powerful. It is about staying clear enough to carry what God already trained in you. Do not leave before the seal. Power that is revealed must be consecrated before it is carried. In the next part, we will close the agreement with the old reaction, bless the restraint heaven recorded, and declare that you will not become what hurt you. Chosen one, stay for the seal. Do not leave while your spirit is open and heaven is still speaking. A word this heavy must not fall on the ground. It must be answered with agreement, because the old cycle loses power when your mouth stops serving the wound. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Place your hand over your chest if you can. Feel the place where pain tried to build a throne, and let that place know that God has already spoken a higher verdict. Say this from your spirit. I will not become what hurt me. I will not carry fire for revenge. I will not let betrayal become my teacher. I will not let rejection name me. I will not let the old reaction climb back onto the throne. Say it again with authority. My silence was not weakness. My restraint was warfare. My clean hands were obedience. My closed mouth was not fear. It was proof that God has trained me to carry power without being ruled by pain. Let those words settle. This is not performance. This is a spiritual break from the agreement that said you had to defend yourself through destruction. You are not powerless because you refuse to wound back. You are powerful because you refuse to let pain choose your form. Now declare this. I release the need to be seen by those who benefit from misunderstanding me. I release the need to explain myself to every accuser. I release the need to reopen closed doors just to prove that I was right. I receive the peace of a clean exit. I receive the strength of holy restraint. I receive the clarity to know when to speak and when to stay silent. I receive the courage to let God defend what my ego wanted to handle by force. Chosen one, you are not leaving this message as the same person. You entered with questions, but you are leaving with confirmation. You entered wondering if heaven saw the cost, but you are leaving with the witness that God recorded every unseen ounce of obedience. The enemy wanted your restraint to turn into regret. He wanted you to replay the room. He wanted you to imagine sharper words, stronger responses, and heavier exposure. But that replay is only the old pattern begging for one more chance to breathe through you. Do not feed it. Do not rehearse it. Do not let your imagination become the place where you finally react. If God restrained your mouth in the moment, do not hand your mind back to the battle after heaven already called you victorious. Say this slowly. I will not confuse silence with defeat. I will not confuse restraint with weakness. I will not confuse peace with passivity. I will not confuse old pain with discernment. I will not confuse my wound with the voice of God. The power God trained in you is not loud first, it is clean first. It does not need to dominate every room. It does not need to answer every insult. It does not need to prove itself to people who are addicted to your reaction. That is why you must protect your clarity. Your next season will not be carried by chaos. It will not be carried by fog. It will not be carried by old emotional habits that make urgent decisions from wounded places. It will be carried by a spirit that can hear and obey. If the genius song was mentioned in this message and your spirit felt that pull, keep it in its proper place. It is not your source. God is your source. It is a 7-minute support tool for clarity, focus, and gamma alignment as you return to stillness. Use it only if peace is leading you. The verified link is in the description and pinned comment. Let it support the mind that must remain clear for the authority you now carry, but never let any tool replace prayer, obedience, or holy discernment. Now return to the seal. Say this: I carry power under God. I carry fire without hatred. I carry truth without cruelty. I carry authority without pride. I carry memory without letting memory become a chain around my future. Say it again. I am not the old cycle. I am not the old reaction. I am not the anger of those who came before me. I am not the bitterness that tried to enter through betrayal. I am a break in the chain. Let heaven hear your agreement. Let darkness hear your separation. Let every hidden pattern know that your mouth, your hands, your mind, and your future no longer belong to the wound that once trained your survival. You did something sacred. You let the fire pass through you without letting it corrupt you. You felt the blade and refused to become a blade. You had the power to answer pain with pain, and you chose the higher law. That is why heaven can trust you with more. Not because you never feel anger, not because you never hurt, not because you never remember, but because you have learned that feeling deeply does not give the wound permission to lead. Chosen one, you are one of them. Let that enter your bones. You are not being made smaller. You are being made safer for greater authority. God is not removing your fire. He is teaching your fire to answer only to Him. Now declare over your next season: I will hear clearly, I will move cleanly, I will speak when heaven releases me, I will be silent when heaven restrains me. I will not let old wounds make leadership decisions in my life. I will not chase vindication. I will not beg to be understood. I will not return to the room God delivered me from. I will not hand my peace to people who only know how to feel powerful when I am reacting. Receive this blessing. May your mind become still. May your spirit become sharp. May your discernment rise above every emotional echo. May the people assigned to manipulate your reaction lose access to the version of you they knew how to control. May your silence carry authority. May your words carry weight. May your hands remain clean. May your heart stay soft without becoming available for abuse. May your power remain submitted to God, and may your next step be covered by heaven. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, type this declaration in the comments. God trained me for this power. Type it as a witness. Type it as a boundary. Type it as a holy notice to the old cycle that it no longer owns you. Subscribe if this word carried weight in your spirit. Stay close for more. Chosen One messages on discernment, divine timing, obedience, hidden battles, and the kind of authority that is formed in silence before it is revealed in public. And now, receive the final word. You did not lose. You passed. You did not shrink. You matured. You did not miss the moment. You became the moment where the old cycle ended and a cleaner authority began. God trained you for this power. Heaven witnessed what you just did. The enemy misread your silence because he has never understood holy restraint. But now you understand it, and once a chosen one understands their clean authority, The old pattern cannot govern them the same way again. Walk in peace. Carry the fire cleanly. Guard your clarity. Refuse the old reaction. Let God defend your name, direct your timing, and teach your power where to stand. You are not becoming what hurt you. You are becoming what heaven trained.